to connect with today. Happy February. So I am jumping in as always. I'm actually jumping in to give a little quick recap from our World Staffing Summit. Our virtual World Staffing Summit happened today from 9 a.m. and it just closed it's about 6:08. And I want to give some takeaways and let you guys know that there's still time to check out the summit in the replay mode. So if you're interested, I would definitely go ahead and do that. You can still register and then you would see the sessions in replay. I'm going to drop it here. We're going to go ahead and drop it here in the comment section below. For those of you guys who might be interested, there was a wealth of information given out during that session today. It was actually so much information that I have a ton of notes, as well as I am partially exhausted. They have the World Staffing Summit once a year, so they do other activities, but that particular summit happens once a year. It's usually the end of January, beginning of February, so it was today. And a lot of your movers and shakers in the industry are there. So they have a lot of CEOs, COOs, CFOs, presidents, VPs, CMOs, sharing their experience about the industry, sharing changes, trends. There's a lot of good conversation as far as how to move forward as the industry kind of changes and moves post-pandemic. So hold on a second, guys. I'm looking for the login so I can share it. Some things to really consider is that it's talking about staffing from a global view, as well as it's talking about health staffing in general. It's not specific to healthcare, but the information that you gain is applicable no matter where you are in the process. And there also are quite a few individuals who participate who are in the healthcare staffing space. So like some people are in the IT, healthcare, some executive, management, or administrative, some of those individuals, but it's a variety from multiple countries. So it's not like even specific as to say it's just the US, just because I think across the market, we're all kind of seeing some of that process happen for everybody. So it's not as specific to say, oh, well, we're the only ones experiencing it here in the US. I think it's a worldwide issue. A couple of things that were like takeaways early on, because I did jump on at 9, was around thinking about how you do business and how to identify an ideal client. And that's why I want to talk about that. April, I see you talking about that. And many times, most of us who got into the industry a couple of years ago, like say right before the pandemic, the thought process was that, hey, we're going to put a net out here and just catch all the clients we can get. And then that's kind of how we're going to move forward with our hiring process and things of that nature. So I pinned the link to sign up. I don't think it'll be available tomorrow. So if you're interested in seeing any of the content that they shared, I would do it tonight preferably. So register, they'll send you a link, you can access the recorded sessions. But some of us kind of have the thought process, you throw it all out there, we get on all these platforms, you talk to all these people, we do all this cold calling, and then whatever type of client I get. But some of the conversation, especially in the morning sessions, were around thinking about like, who is your ideal client? What types of staffing needs do they have? Where might they be located? How many residents, or what are their ratios like? Is it in a small town? Is it in a big town? What would their needs look like? And some of this stuff you can actually quantify through numbers. So I'm a big numbers person. I'm sure most of you guys are as well, but kind of doing the throw the net out there approach, I think is starting to get a little bit obsolete, because one of the conversations they had on the summit was around, some of us are fishing from the same pond. So like, use a NOSA group, for example. Many of NOSAs kind of overlap as far as their client pool and their candidate pool, definitely the candidate pool. But what if you were fishing into the same pond again and again, right? So from an employee standpoint of view, what if you were throwing your net out there and you come back and you get the bluefish? And then 2 months later, you throw your net out there, you come back and you get the bluefish again. Those are real indicators that your market or your client or ideal client isn't niched down enough. The same way that we can talk about nurse specialties, like, hey, when someone says, hey, I'm a registered nurse or a licensed practical nurse, that doesn't tell you what they do on a day-to-day basis, because the one that works in long-term care does something different than the works on med-surg, does something different than the one that works on labor and delivery, emergency. We all may be under the same umbrella of the nursing profession, but we all do different things. It's different than the at-home nurse or the hospice nurse or the home care nurse. Like, your day-to-day activities are totally different. And what that got me thinking about is that maybe as nurses, as we go into 2024, happy February 1st, we may need to think like that. We may need to niche down our ideal client. You know, we've worked with good clients, we work with bad clients, we work with those that's kind of lukewarm. I think recently someone posted about, you know, having a good relationship with the client throughout the pandemic, and then kind of the client ghosted them. And there was no feedback as to what was going on, you know, slow to respond, maybe not asking for as many needs. And then you're kind of stuck because you're not able to bridge that communication gap with that client to kind of gear up again. And then maybe also, you know, that they have needs. Maybe, you know, your staff or whomever is saying, hey, they're hiring, they're looking for people, you know, things of that nature. So, so thinking about that is really key. And I think that's essential as we move into the rest of the year, especially post-pandemic, where there's so many conversations, and I'm not going to say rumors, but conversations around, hey, we're getting rid of agencies. We won't need them anymore. We're going to create our own internal agency. You know, we're looking to, you know, only have staff. And, you know, that's how we're going to run our business model. Okay. That's their desire, that's their intention. But I want to say I've been a nurse for a little bit over 10 years, and I've heard that since I started nursing. And I've heard from other nurses that have been in the industry way before me the same thing around the idea of getting rid of agency. It's just not an option. But how that might impact nurses is that they may slim down their business. You know, they may have or experience budget cuts. You know, they may feel like, you know, the agencies are, you know, not providing them the level of employee that they're looking for, or technology or transparency. It can be a bunch of different reasons. But one thing to really consider in that space is, hey, if I've been doing this 2 or 3 years and I'm kind of still in the same space or still in a little bit of the same rat race, what do I need to do different to scale up, transition out, you know, transition over to get my business to the next level that I'm looking for it to be at? It could be a financial goal, it could be an employee goal, it could be a contract goal, it could be a mix of all of those things. Ways that you can leverage these times, like where there's a level of uncertainty and the market is really being shaken up and shifted, is to take the time to look at what you're doing and be more specific. You know, that was one of the common themes that I was a little shocked about, was that, hey, you need to niche down your client. You know, you need to develop a stronger relationship and build communities. There was a big piece that I sat in on, I shared with you guys on, you know, creating your community that you're looking for, not just your employees. And I think a lot of that goes into the fact that employees of today are looking for a different type of work experience than those of us of yesteryear. So in order to access them, connect with them, keep them, retain them, help them grow, help them meet their goals, you really have to offer them something different. because if you hire somebody and hey, they're not going to do 15 years with me, or they're not going to do X number of years with me, then you as the employer have to create your plan around that thought process. And the example I would give, because I do it, and it's not in the NOSA space, but in the VA space. You guys work with virtual assistants. I do. Some people say I'm lucky or I got a good pick, but most of my virtual assistants last about 18 months. And when I hire them, of course, it's not a conversation I have with them, but it's a thought process that I have with them. I know at about the 18-month mark, either I'm going to feel like we've reached, as far as we can go in this relationship. And it's not because of anything bad. So that's the important piece I want you guys to understand. It's not because they did anything bad, but it's more based on historically, as well as I need in my business VAs that are bringing, I need the fresh blood. I need the fresh new ideas, the creativity. That's important because I need someone that's on top of stuff that I'm not necessarily on top of. So kind of that timeline is where I am. I think the longest VA I've had has been 2 years. But when you go in thinking like that, you kind of move them through your company's cycles and seasons in that same way. So like for us, I'm sure it's the same for you guys, we're super busy. You have no idea. This has been an interesting first of the month. But we're super busy, so having someone join our team around this time is really great because they bring that new energy, they're excited, they're asking questions, they're being creative, which are all things that help me, one, keep my head above the water, but also gives the business what it needs. And I think that approach also should apply for many of us when we think about healthcare staffing. The longevity that some of us have been in jobs or careers or things of that nature for more than 4 or 5 years, or work for agencies for that long, is great. But you want to plan ahead that, hey, that person probably wants to do something next. That person probably is interested in doing something more. And I know some of you guys have transitioned some of your staff members into the business as recruiters or schedulers or things like that. And that really allows the individual to begin to have some of the buy-in that they were talking about during the conference, as far as, hey, employees don't want transactional relationships. They don't want, hey, you work 8 hours, you get a check. They want something more. So adding that something more is really key. Okay, so April's saying, I got a lot of bad apple candidates. How can I restructure that? That's a great question because I took some notes. And one of the things that they were talking about, and I'll share with you, April, the video, because I know you registered, that they were talking about was kind of, I'm looking for my notes, the flywheel. And what that essentially is where you go through the process, not you per se, but probably someone in your organization can do it with you. But it's you go through the candidate process. So from start to finish, you go from the time that you post the job, that reach out, the time that you post the job, the reach out, the interview, the credentialing process, the job placement to job offer, essentially from start to job offer. And there's a couple of steps in between that. And you go through every single step. And this is really important because you don't want to miss a step. So that's why it shouldn't be you, April. It should be somebody else, because you probably will miss a step because you're used to doing it. So you take them through this full process and then go back to your bad apples and identify where in the process that they switched. So you go from start to hire, right? And then start again, what they refer to as a flywheel, it's a circle. Hire to placement. So at the point that you're working with individuals who are per diem, I'm just assuming they're per diem, what's happening that they go from good to bad? And sometimes, April, that can be identified during the hiring process. And based on what I've seen out in the industry, I'm guessing that's where the identifier will start, where you'll look at what are similarities that all these people have. It could be that they work for 3 agencies at the same time. It could be that they're working and going to school. So you kind of peel back all the layers like an onion of what's happening with them to see why or how they became candidates. Okay, so these are candidates, not employees. Right, see where they stopped in the process. And wherever they stopped in the process, that's where you kind of identify asterisk and you dig a little bit deeper. Sometimes it's communication. It could be expectations. It could be the way information is communicated to them. And that's where you change it. So when I was talking about some of the conversations at the summit, they were talking about like automation. It might be that the first few steps of your process, hiring process, you may need to automate so that they'll have a more consistent experience. So I'm not sure what you do now, but if you automate like those first couple of steps, that really allows you to see, one, a return on your investment, but also where there may be hiccups, right? So like if the system posts a job, they reach out, hey, can we set up an interview? Hey, we're interested in talking with you more, And that's where the communication stops, or they respond, but then you don't hear from them again. And you don't even really get to the interview process. I would say that would be an indication of not enough information about the job, because you kind of have to understand your target audience a little bit, and that if you're providing them all the details, which is something that's very common in healthcare, that's a great stepping point. But you don't want to just provide them details about the job. You want to tell them, and really tell them, why they should work with you, like what makes you amazing. And sometimes, as No says, we're shy, hesitant, move slowly to have that. But with so many agencies out there explaining the why, either in a blog post or in a video or anything that's personable, is really key. You know, they had said that like 60-70% of applicants don't answer their phone. And I was taken aback by that. Now, given I haven't been out here looking for a job, and I would probably be in the pool of applicants on that, because I don't answer my phone. And now that Apple has introduced the whole transcription piece on the voicemail, oh, I'm good to go. It's very hard to get me on a regular phone call, especially if I don't already have your name saved in my phone. So they were talking about some tools that help with that. So, right. So if and this is a great example, so I'm glad you're hanging out with me again, April. So if you're losing your candidates in the beginning phases, and a part of your first steps with your candidates is to set up a phone call, then that might be what it is. Because most candidates, we already know, work multiple jobs, work multiple agencies, that's fine. But if you put yourself in the shoes of today's candidate, they want all of the information up front. They want transparency. They want convenience, right? So that's why me, you, and a whole bunch of us are on social media. And then they want the compliance process to be quick.